freedom in the minds of Americans.
Welcome to Fires of Liberty and our weekly podcast. This is Clark and Ken. We're your hosts. Welcome back. It is a terrific day. We've got a lot of news that we want to talk about. A lot of exciting things are happening. But before we do that, I just wanted to take a moment and think about what is going on in Washington, D.C. and the gunman there. I'm not going to mention his name because I do not believe in promoting these guys in their fame and fortune. But I mean, it is a sad, tragic event. It is just very sad. I don't want to have the show or the podcast talk about that a whole lot, but please say your prayers for those people, the victims of the shooting, etc. And everyone just knows that our thoughts and prayers are with those people and their families. So I just wanted to open up with that. But Quinn, we've got a lot of great things that are going on with the Convention of States project. Yes?
Absolutely. This has been a great week for us. And thanks for opening up in regards to the shooting. Our prayers definitely go out to the families of the victims. And it just shows how our nation, man, is just really on the tipping point. And the division is getting greater and greater. So we just pray that a healing will take place and we can get back to some civility. But in regards of COS, wow, what a week. This is exciting, man. And,
it is.
We got some big news to share.
Well, we do. And we've been involved in this project for quite some time. And the thing that is exciting about it and why Quinn and I and along with hundreds of others of people out there, thousands of others, have dedicated our time and treasure, our lives to this effort is because we can save our republic with the Convention of States project. We truly can. And we're starting to be noticed out there in the mainstream media. We're starting to be noticed in a major way. That's why George Soros and his minions and 230 different organizations, most of which are funded by George Soros, the mainstream establishment in Washington, D.C., both sides of the aisle, doesn't matter. But people that want to protect their power are against Article 5. Well, people that truly believe in this country, believe in what we can do, are jumping on board with the Convention of States project. They really are. And so to that end, Quinn, I'm going to ask you to make this announcement and what came down on Monday of this week. Quinn, take it away, brother.
Well, as most of our listeners know, the two gentlemen that co-founded Convention of States Project is our president of Citizens for Self-Governance, Mark Meckler, along with Michael Ferris, who is a constitutional scholar. He started Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And so these two gentlemen started this effort. And then along the path, Senator Tom Coburn joined us. Was it last year? Dr. Coburn came on board with us as senior advisor.
I think it might have been the year before. I'm not 100% sure of the timing.
Yeah, and so just this week, major announcement. Let me just show you how it played out on the front page of USA Today. Let me try to get this in the camera here for you. But can you read that, Clark? Can you see that?
Yeah, that's perfect right there.
Why don't you read it out loud for those just listening?
It says, DeMint takes on new mission. Who are we talking about? The one and only former senator and head of the Heritage Foundation, Jim DeMint. He was a South Carolina senator. So me being in South Carolina, he's a homeboy for us. And so, yeah, you can take that down. And But Senator Jim DeMint, former Senator Jim DeMint, is now on the senior staff with the Convention of States Project. He'll be touring the country, helping us to move our resolution in any state that needs him. The first stop, I'm excited to say, is next week. He's going to be in North Carolina on Wednesday. We're going to be meeting with legislators, meeting with everybody, because North Carolina is still in play, as you are well aware. And so we've got a major, major event planned for him. Mark Meckler is going to be joining us. It's going to be huge. I am so excited about this. It is amazing. But you've got to think about this for a second. Who's against us? George Soros, the progressive left, the progressive right. They're behind us. The power base in Washington, D.C., they are against us. Who's for us? Huge thinkers like Tom Coburn, Michael Ferris, Rob Natelson, now Jim DeMint. I mean, the list of our endorsers is growing on a daily basis. Sean Hannity, Marco Rubio. I mean, people that truly care about this country, they're on board. The people that want to protect their own power, they're against us. That ought to tell you everything you need to know. Quinn, who am I missing?
Oh, yeah. We have so many great people. We've got, obviously, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Mark Levin, Congressman Jeff Duncan. We also have who have endorsed us. In fact, if you go to our website, you can see our list of endorsers. Colonel Alan West, Sean Hannity, Mike Huckabee, and Sarah Palin, David Barton from Wall Builders, and Ben Sass. So on and on. This list is growing, and what people are realizing is we cannot continue to do business the same old way in Washington, D.C., where the people just go to the ballot box, they cast their vote, think everything's going to change and be better. We know that process no longer works. We have got to change the structure of the federal government and restore this balance between the national government and the state governments. And so the only way to do this is through amendments, and the only amendments that are going to work will come from our convention. So this is great, man. We are getting, not only that, we've got a number of constitutional attorneys and scholars supporting us. You know, when you look at the opposition, they're using research and people who had no background in Article 5. They wrote nothing about it, mainly, or they had an agenda and why they, opposed it. Like, for instance, Warren Burger, the Supreme Court justice. Why did he oppose it? Because he saw his legend decision, Roe v. Wade, on the possibly being overturned by the states. So we have Randy Barnett of Georgetown, Andrew McCarthy, Chuck Cooper of the NRA. That's one issue in some of the states where these Second Amendment groups are, not all, but there's a few that are fearful of this. Well, they shouldn't, because this is going to strengthen the Second Amendment. This is what they need to get behind in order to limit the power and the jurisdiction of the federal government. We have Dr. John Eastman, Robbie George of Princeton, Matt Staver, VP of Liberty University, on and on and on. This movement is growing, and we are getting noticed. It's very exciting, man.
Well, and it brings up a good point that you had mentioned earlier. We do have some really good people in the House of Representatives and in the Senate in Washington, D.C. We really do. But the problem and the reason that they're unable to get anything done, and Tom Coburn and Jim DeMint both come from the belly of that beast. And they realized when they got there, and it took them a while. I mean, this isn't something that they realized overnight, but they realized when they got there that they were alone, standing on the train tracks while this freight train moving 70 miles an hour was coming at them. And they're standing there all by themselves, putting up their hands saying, stop. And guess who's going to win? That freight train is Washington, D.C. But that is exactly what you're up against when you go to Washington, D.C. and try to make change. Ken Buck just came out with a new book. Okay, and he talks about the exact same thing. He's a congressman and good friend of mine from the state of Colorado. But he wrote a book, and in it, he talks about the solution being Article 5. Okay, so when you take a look at what happens to people when they go inside the Beltway and they get elected to office, the corruption and the creature, if you will, being Washington, D.C., is simply too big for any one person or a group of 12 or a group of 10 or 15 even to stop. It is massive. So what does that mean? We have to use the power of all 50 states and you and me, because we, the people, actually hold that power. We are the ones that have to fix it because we are more powerful than they are. But a lone senator like Tom Coburn, a lone senator like Jim DeMint, they're not going to get anywhere. And unfortunately, there simply aren't enough of us in Washington, D.C. to make a difference. And, we've been trying for the last 50 years to change that, but we haven't gotten it done. So now it's up to we, the people.
Yeah, if you were to count, Ken, on how many people in Congress, let's just take a look at the House. How many congressmen or women in the House would you say are doing a great job and deserve to be there and will do what they need to get done? I bet you can count them on one hand, maybe two hands.
I'm going to guess it's pushing 18 to 20.
18 to okay. Let's give it both hands and both feet. Okay, 20 people. All right, that will always. Now I'm not talking once in a while or a majority of the time, but always vote correctly. Always defend the Constitution. Those people are hard to find. They'll get down there, but after a couple of years, they change. And
you've got to remember they're forced into an unwinnable situation when you talk about legislation like the omnibus bill. They pack that bill with everything under the sun and say vote up or down. And there's no line item veto. There's no separating it out. And, you're talking about $1 trillion piece of legislation. And they pack everything into it. They do that on purpose to make it impossible for the solid people of the Liberty Caucus to fight against it. It's impossible to fight against such a thing. And they just make it impossible to do so.
Yeah.
And that's why they can't win.
Yeah, and a majority is 218 in the House, and so you will never get there doing it this way. So the only way we have got to do this through the amendment process. This is exactly why the framers put it in the Constitution. And if you consider yourself a constitutionalist, this is the effort, the project you need to be involved in. So if you're not on board, jump on.
And so what you need to be doing and what you need to be thinking about is how you can utilize people like Tom Coburn, people like Jim DeMint, Mark Meckler, et cetera, in your state to build your volunteer base, build legislative support. What can you do with those kinds of names? Because guess what? We can get them there. If you put together the events, we can get those people in your state. So think about what you can do in your state if you can get a Jim DeMint there as a headliner for an event, because that's exactly why he's here. And if you want him, if you need him, if you have an event that you would like those people to come join you with, let us know, because we can get them there. We can absolutely get them there. And as I said, these guys aren't going to be sitting around writing papers. They're going to be coming to your states. They're going to be helping you support building your volunteer base, helping you convince legislators to vote the right way. That's what they're here for. And that's what we can do. So start thinking about that. Start thinking about what it is and how you can use those guys, because they are coming to your state. All you got to do is ask for them. So we've got a lot to go over in today's show. We're going to talk about the historical support for the Convention of States. We're going to talk about the Uniform Law Commission. We're going to wrap it up with some social media, bring it all together. And, if you want to find out where to subscribe to Fires of Liberty, go to the Fires of Liberty on our Facebook page. The Convention of States Project. You can find us everywhere on Twitter at COS Project, Instagram at Convention of States. You can subscribe to the Convention of States Project on YouTube. And I wanted to make a real quick shout out to Lanterns Buzz. Ken, Quinn, what is the Lanterns Buzz and Spreaker? What are those websites?
Yeah, we are lanterns.buzz is where we're part of the Lanterns Radio Network. And so if you go to lanterns.buzz, you can not only listen to our podcast, but a multitude of other like-minded individuals that are at Lanterns Radio Network. Also go to Spreaker.com. They've got a great app. If you want to take us on the road with you, download that app and you can make us your favorites. And we really appreciate your support. So check us out and spread the love. Spread us out there everywhere you go.
All right, we're going to be right back. Don't go away.
Increasingly frequent departures from constitutional principles are destroying the rule of law foundation on which this country was built.
A handful of lawyers on the Supreme Court issuing edicts, a president of the United States legislating and ruling by fiat, Congress getting involved in every aspect of our lives.
You're spending our future of our kids and our present day income, and we think it ought to change.
The cure will not come from Washington, D.C. They must come from the states.
I've been there, I've seen it, it stinks. It's about them, it's not about us.
I want Texas to join other states in calling for a convention of states to fix the cracks in our broken Constitution.
Founders, in their brilliance, gave us a tool to do that, and it's in Article 5.
Article 5 says that you, the citizens, can call a convention of states.
It is the only way we will ever be able to devolve power away from Washington back to the states as the founders of this great country intended it to be.
We have to do all the things that are necessary to restore our liberties.
Put teeth into the 10th Amendment.
Term limits on Congress, term limits on judges, and a balanced budget amendment for America.
We're going to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. That's how we do it.
We, the people, have to take the lead to restore the rule of law.
And all the people that say, what can we do? This is the answer.
For the American people, in a civil, legal, constitutional, thoughtful way, to begin the process of reclaiming their republic.
This is going to be the biggest army of Americans who love our country and love liberty that has ever arisen.
If Congress can't get it done, we look to the Constitution of the United States. We look at what the Founding Fathers said. We look at Article 5. And we return the power to the people.
Welcome back to Fires of Liberty. I'm Quinn along with Clark, and we want to continue our discussion about the founders and past presidents. We got some great quotes we want to share with you about Article 5 and specifically about Convention of States, the Article 5 Convention for Proposing Amendments. You know, I think we played a clip a few episodes ago where John Burcheside, the representative there, is saying, well, you know, the framers never, there's no quotes, and they never expected to use convention to stop federal overreach. It's only to correct mistakes and things like that. And so, Clark,
I get the feeling sometimes that those Birchers and all the other people that decide to disparage not only the Convention of 1787 and try to rewrite history and try to, they throw all this garbage at us. I mean, it really does get frustrating sometimes. But they believe that Article 5 was in there to fix punctuation.
Yes. Okay.
To me, that's what they're suggesting, that, they might have misspelled a word in the Constitution, or maybe there's a punctuation error. And all you have to do is take a look at the Second Amendment, and that comma is in there and placed where it is for a reason. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail about that, but read the Second Amendment, understand it, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So that is the lunacy of what they throw at us, and to me, it's dishonest.
Well, yeah. Well, all you got to do is go back to the debate when they were discussing the Article 5 on September 15th, and even before that. And the reason they wanted it there, especially what Mason, when he stood up, and it was because of this thing is going to get out of control. It's going to become tyrannical, and we need a way to, prevent that or check it at least. And this is all about checking powers at the national level, and that is exactly why they put it in there. And we've got some quotes from the framers. We're going to put all these up on our Facebook page, so if you want to look them up yourself, feel free to. But these are some powerful quotes. And do you want to just maybe throw one out there for the folks, Clark?
Yeah, and the point of what we're trying to do is simply arm you with the historical facts, because we at the Convention of States Project, we care about fact, not fiction, not innuendo. We care about fact, which is why we've got some massive brains on our side, like Michael Ferris, Rob Matelson. The people that do the research, some of the most powerful constitutional scholars of our time, support the Article 5 movement. They support Convention of States. And the reason they do, take a look at Matelson himself. He came in as a skeptic. Quinn, you came in as a skeptic. A lot of people came in as a skeptic. And, all you have to do is take a look at the framers, what they said about it. Take a look at Alexander Hamilton, Federalist 85, quote, "By the fifth article of the plan, we may safely rely on the disposition of the state legislatures to erect barriers against the encroachment of the national authority." That is what it's all about. That's Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 85. Don't take my word for it. Pull up the Federalist Papers and read it. But are you kidding? In that encroachments of the national authority, who is he talking about? He's talking about Washington, D.C. What is he talking about? He's talking about the beast that is our federal government. How do you tame the beast? By overwhelming force. Overwhelming force of the people, meaning you and me. But that's exactly what he's talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
What is our tool? Our tool is Article 5.
Yeah, and that's what makes our Constitution and our form of government so great, because we're supposed to have checks and balances, and this is the ultimate check against a runaway federal government, which is our reality. So here's a great quote by James Madison, quote, "Should the provisions of the Constitution as here reviewed be found not to secure the government and rights of the states against usurpations and abuses on the part of the United States, the final resort within the purview of the Constitution lies in an amendment of the Constitution according to a process applicable by the states." That's Convention of States right there, man. What a beautiful quote that is.
And that both of these quotes go back to what I've always talked about and what I've always said. Everybody says that you're going to rewrite the Constitution. Everybody says that it's going to be a runaway, blah, 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 blah. And this is something that everyone needs to understand. The states do not need the permission of the Constitution to rewrite it. All they have to do, just like they did in 1787, is get together, call it, and go to it. They don't need to call this under Article 5. In fact, if they wanted to rewrite the Constitution, the wrong, exact opposite thing they should be doing is invoking Article 5. They should be doing it outside of Article 5. They should be doing it by themselves without using any constitutional constraints. The only reason you use Article 5 is to limit what kind of amendments can be proposed. That's it. And so you have to specify in the application itself, the resolution, what you want to talk about. That limits itself what can and cannot be discussed, what can and cannot be proposed. It is very simple. It is simple logic. That explains it, Quinn.
Absolutely, and you know, one of the groups out there that has opposed us, I'm not sure if it's the name of the group, but this is their slogan: "Defend, not amend." Okay, and you know, so let me what I do, I flip that on them, and I flip it, and I base that flip on a quote by James Madison, and so my flip is amend to defend, and let me share you an incredible quote by James Madison himself. And basically, this is how he saw Article 5 to be used by the states to restore the Constitution. Listen to this. It's very short. Quote, "An ulterior resort is provided in amendments attainable by an intervention of the states," Article 5, "which may better adapt the Constitution for the purposes of its creation," unquote. Right there. That is amend to defend.
We've got a bunch of amendments to the Constitution that have been ratified by the states. There's 27 of them, okay? And every single one of them was proposed by Congress. And are there any, aside from the repeal of prohibition, are there any amendments that limit the size, scope, and power of the federal government? Are there any? Are there any?
Well, the only one would be the limiting the term of the president, you know, the 22nd Amendment, basically. So,
yeah, okay, I would agree with that. But there is no fiscal restraint amendment. There's no balanced budget amendment. There's no term limit amendment. I mean, Mitch McConnell already said that was DOA. I mean, so anybody that believes that Washington, D.C. is going to fix itself, or you're going to be able to get anyone in Washington, D.C. to abide by the original Constitution, not the annotated Constitution, because the mistake those people made is they believe that the original Constitution is still the one that they follow. It's not. They follow the annotated Constitution, which is the Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court. One solid amendment proposed by Article 5 and ratified by the states could overturn 100 years of bad Supreme Court decisions. I mean, it could do that. That's why we're doing this.
You know, here's a great quote by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on Article 5. He says, quote, "Through their state legislatures and without regard to the federal government, the people can demand a convention to propose amendments that can and will reverse any trends they see as fatal to true representative government." Wow. That is a powerful quote, and that's where we are today. There's a lot of trends I'm seeing, Mark, that are fatal to our representative form of government. So this is how we get it done. Hey, do you want to touch on Milton Friedman real quick and the economist back in the 80s and what he said about this?
Yeah, would you mind reading that quote real quick? Yep. Because quite frankly, when you highlighted that, I couldn't see it. So if you would, and Milton Friedman, for those of you that don't know, brilliant mind. He was an economist. People use him all the time because he was true to his principles. And I mean, the man is a genius, was a genius. Unbelievable brain. Quinn?
Oh, yeah. And the context of this is his support for an Article 5 convention for the balanced budget amendment. But listen to this quote, "The right remedy is not to elect the right people, but to make it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing." Oh, man, is that powerful or what? That is so true.
But he also touches on something that we have to constantly remind ourselves. These people, most of them, not all, I mean, and you can find a handful, like we talked about in the last segment, that are there for true motives, meaning true to the country, true to the people motives. But for the most part, they're there to to gain power. Okay, so the only way that you are going to make those people act in the way you want them to is to make it politically profitable. In other words, make it in their own best interest to do the right thing. Otherwise, they're going to act in their own best interest. And that is typically not the right thing for the country, the direction of the country. Their motives are selfish. Okay, so that's what they're all about. They want to get reelected. They want to consolidate their own power, etc. So if you can make it politically expedient for them to do the right thing for the country, meaning if they're going to get reelected, if they do the right thing, that is something that will have a tremendous amount of power. Article 5 is the only tool we have to do that. Glenn?
Yeah, no, you're right. And, I wish elections would make a difference, but you're right. We just cannot get enough good people down there to make the structural changes needed. And so that is why we want, if you're listening to this, please, if you're not part of your state team for the Convention of States, join us today. Visit our website, conventionofstates.com. Up top, where there's a section about get involved, and there's a number of positions, volunteer positions that we need to fill. Our goal this year is to get to 10 million supporters by the end of the year. We're up to about 2.2 million right now. So we need activists. If you've got an hour or two a week, please get involved. We need as many people on the team as possible. We have district captains. We have state directors. We have a lot of positions that we need to get filled, and a lot of this can be done on social media, just sharing the message, educating people. So join us. Join the fight for freedom. Join the Convention of States Project, and please get involved. Help us in your state to pass our Article 5 resolution. We're up to 12. We're up to 12. What? North Carolina might make it 13?
They might make it 13.
Yeah,
they're in the thick of battle right now, and it is a heavy lift in North Carolina. We've already passed through the Senate. We've got to get through the House. And that's why I'm so excited about what we've got going on next week. But it is a heavy lift. Whatever skill set you have, we need. The Convention of States Project has the most extraordinary tools available to help volunteers be successful. We don't ask people to do work that is not meaningful. And whatever it is you are good at, we've got a place for you. So we need an hour of your time a week. We need 40 hours of your time a week. I mean, whatever you can give us, we need. We truly do. So we're going to go to a break real quick. When we come back, we are going to talk about the Uniform Law Commission, because that is a shining example of how this process works. Don't go away. I'll be right back. In September of 2016, Citizens for Self-Governance organized the first ever simulation of an Article 5 Convention of States. About 130 commissioners representing all 50 states participated in a test run of this constitutional solution to a runaway federal government.
It was the most extraordinary thing in my career that I've ever been a part of.
This historical event was held in colonial Williamsburg, Virginia. The Founding Fathers often met in taverns, townhouses of Williamsburg in order to nurture and debate the revolutionary ideas that America was founded upon. It was here that the Virginia Declaration of Rights was written, a precursor to the American Bill of Rights. A reluctant Ken Ivory of Utah was elected by his peers as the convention president.
Has any candidate received a majority?
Yes, Mr. President. Representative Ivory has 28 votes.
All right, Mr. Ivory.
He didn't want to run at first, but his colleagues convinced him to throw his hat into the ring.
I'm honored that there are so many people willing to stand up for the liberty of my children. And I know that the nation has its eyes on you. Thank you for being here, and let's get to work.
The event's proceedings were broadcast, including live commentary from Article 5 experts like retired U.S. Senator Tom Coburn, among others. Thousands of Convention of States supporters across the nation participated in watch parties to view the event's spellbinding proceedings. The convention rules were compiled by Professor Robert Nadelson and edited by a caucus of about 200 state legislators. Citizens submitted thousands of amendment ideas for the commissioners to review.
As we deliberated over proposals, parties went away, and we started talking about what is best for the country. What can we do to relieve some of the tyranny that the country is experiencing now from its own federal government?
3 committees eventually whittled it all down to 8 proposals. 6 of these 8 were successfully adopted by the Convention of States simulation. Proposal 1 provides for restraints on the national debt. Proposal 2 would restore the Commerce Clause back to its original intent. Proposal 3 places term limits on members of the United States Congress. 4 allows for a way by which a supermajority of the states can repeal a federal law. Proposal 5 places a permanent limit on federal taxation. Proposal 6, a process for Congress to repeal federal regulation. Additionally, the convention voted to adopt a statement that said they also recommend a balanced budget amendment and restraints on the fiscal judiciary. Even though they didn't have time to hammer out exact language, they felt this was important.
We have a motion to adopt the language as a statement from the convention, seconded by everybody.
The Article 5 convention process works, just as the founders knew it would. Clearly, state commissioners should be trusted with this constitutional solution.
There is collective wisdom in a citizen legislative process. That's the way it's designed to function, and we saw some of that magic here.
You have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to the country that the people of the United States of America are ready to hold the first Article 5 convention in the history of this country. I congratulate you, I salute you, and may God bless you. Thank you very much.
For more information, please visit www.conventionestates.com/COSSIN.
And we are back. This is Clark and Quinn. We are your hosts on Fires of Liberty podcast. The video you just saw was about the simulation that Convention of States put together last summer. It was about a year ago. And this was a simulated Article 5 convention. The power behind that is that we brought in legislators from all 50 states. We had representation from everywhere. And once it happened, and the thing that you need to keep in mind is once we got everybody there, we were done. Our job was over, and they took over. And it goes to show how deliberative this process is, how the convention itself will actually work, and there should be zero fear in moving forward with this because it is very powerful. So what I would like and ask everybody to do in your spare time, I know in this day and age not many people have any, but go to conventionestates.com. Quinn, you're going to talk about this in detail, but there is so much historical fact, historical history sounds redundant, but it is. But there is so much history on how conventions work that anybody that studies this is going to walk away and know beyond a shadow of a doubt that what we're doing is safe, it is necessary, and it is the only way we're going to save our republic. So, Quinn, take a minute and talk about the Uniform Law Commission.
Yeah, well, before I get to that, our simulated convention was incredible, and we did that just so folks and especially legislators can see how the process works. But we've covered in the past the other convention states were held amongst the states and the colonies. I think there's about 38 we have identified so far. We've also discussed, and we talked I think last time about the states, how they have had constitutional conventions to adopt new constitution as well as amendment conventions within the states. There's been 233 of those. So about 12,000 amendments have been adopted or ratified by the states. And so this Uniform Law Commission is really an incredible history. I heard about this. In fact, I think, Clark, you were there. I heard it. Michael Ferris just made a brief comment about the Uniform Law Commission. And it was at the symposium, I believe you were at, with Mark Meckler and Rob Nadelson. And boy, it hit my ear. I'm like, well, what's he talking about? So I like to research, as you know. So I did a little digging and I found out, and this is one of the arguments we hear all the time, we've never seen this process in 1787, and what a bunch of nonsense that is and complete ignorance. Anyone that believes that or says that, they are just completely ignorant of our history. And you hear often, well, today it's different today because, it's just totally different. You know what I mean? So they always look for an excuse. So I did my research. The Uniform Law Commission is virtually identical to an Article 5 convention. This is a body that began in 1892. And I'm just going to read one sentence here. It says, from its beginning in 1892 in Saratoga, New York, the Uniform Law Commission has been a major force in maintaining and strengthening, quote, federalism, unquote, in the United States in order to maintain a healthy balance between state and federal law. Wow. So what was happening back then is we had the Constitution in place, but then you had states with different laws, and it made it very inconvenient on people traveling from state to state. So they met, and they have met every single year except 1 year, 1945, and this is phenomenal. Listen to this. The states, it's just like in Article 5 because the states send commissioners. So all 50 states, I think 3 territories now today, send commissioners. Most of the commissioners are appointed by the state governors. Maine has 3 appointed by the governor. They meet once a year. Once a year for about a week. Initially, it was called the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. And so they meet for a week, and the scope of the meeting is based on what the Scope and Program Committee decides. So it's limited, just like the Article 5 applications are limited by 2/3 of the states, okay? Each commissioner is required to present their commission. So they bring their commissions just like an Article 5 delegates would bring to our convention. And what's really neat is they draft and propose uniform state laws. They have enacted 300 of these since 1892. What's really phenomenal, Ken, is that it's one state, one vote, just like an Article 5 convention would work.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second, because everybody says that they're going to change the rules, and I ran into this when I was testifying in Ohio. Everybody says they're going to change the rules on ratification. They're going to change the one state, one vote rule and all this, blah, blah, blah. They can't do that. The Constitution was the states getting together to to create a form of government. Back in the 1787 convention, it was one state, one vote. It is inherent in Article 5 that it is one state, one vote, because it talks about the states. Now, if you go back in history to the 1787 convention, states were on the same level as countries were. They were sovereign countries that were getting together to form a coalition for a federal government, okay? But the states were just like the state of Great Britain. That was what the term meant. So the state of North Carolina, the state of South Carolina, the state of Virginia had just as much weight as the state of Great Britain. All right. And so I think it's very important to understand the historical context of that word.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, well, all these, yeah. And so when people say, well, you know, we don't have the rules, we don't know how it's going to work. We've been using the rules. The state legislatures have been using these rules every single year. So it's just a complete cop out. And what's so cool about this process is, for instance, last year I attended the Uniform Law Commission last year in Vermont. So I went there, you know, the big room, all states were there lined up with their delegations, their state flag. They did the roll call, and the last year they passed 6 acts out of this body. Okay. And what's phenomenal, okay, these aren't legislators, okay, but they are officially representing the states. And what they do is whatever act passes, those commissioners then bring those acts back to their state legislature to have a legislator sponsor it and pass it as legislation to adopt as state law. Right now in Maine, I believe 5 acts that came out of this body currently this year are being considered to become state law. And so that mirrors the ratification process as well. Now, obviously, it's just once the state passes it, it becomes binding to that state. It's not like they need 38 states to ratify anything. So this has never run away. If anything's going to run away, it would have been this body, because they've been doing this for over 100 years and nothing extreme has come out of this. These people are qualified individuals. And so I recommend, if you go to uniformlaws.org, and I'll post this up on our Facebook page, but this is the book I got. You can actually download this as a PDF. The first couple of chapters give you a great history on this. And this
read the title of that book real quick.
Yeah, what a great title. Forming a More Perfect Union. The history of the Uniform Law Commission. And they also have a number of committees. One of the committees is State and Federal Relations Committee. And so this whole process is being used every single year. And so I would recommend our supporters go to uniformlaws.org, look up your state, find what acts are being currently looked at or voted on in your state legislature. Go to the member section and see which of your folks are commissioners. A number of the commissioners at this are legislators. Now, they do have to be all attorneys in order to be appointed by their governor, but a number of them are also legislators. And so it's a great way, and I would talk to them. I would meet with them, share their insights on this process, because they can help you, hopefully, to educate the remaining legislators there on the whole process, because this works. And I'm telling you, man, we can no longer say we don't know how a convention is going to operate. We do it every single year. So we've got to educate people, buddy.
You know, and it's funny, because if you take a look at some of the organizations that oppose us, and then take a look at the comparison between them and what's happening in Washington, D.C., the thing that I find that they have in common is their agenda. let's face it, there are organizations out there that claim to be on the hard right conservative side that they would wither up and blow away if we actually solve the problems in Washington, D.C. And it's unfortunate because they start off with the purest of motives. And then something happens, somewhere it changes, and they say they don't even sometimes consciously realize it, but they're working for the establishment because if we actually do fix the problems, their need for existence goes away. But imagine a world where we no longer have to fear the IRS, where we no longer have to fear the federal government. We no longer have to fear the EPA. And the IRS, the tax code, is so massive that there isn't a single human on the planet that couldn't be in violation of some policy somewhere. It's over 68,000 pages long. 68,000 pages. And it is designed to force behavior, and so that somewhere, somehow, they're going to find a violation of somebody. Unless you give 100% of your income to the IRS, they're going to find a violation. Well, that's wrong, okay? And the federal government knows it, so they've devised a system to where anybody can be targeted under policy. No congressman or senator has ever voted on most of these policies, but they're treated as law. That's what it's all about. We are trying to solve that problem. So unfortunately, even whether they meant to or not, some of these organizations are promoting the status quo in order to justify their own existence. And it's too bad. Quinn, it's absolutely too bad.
It is. And unfortunately, human nature will never change. It's no matter how successful we are with this process, once we get to our convention, once we propose and even ratify amendments, we have to remain vigilant, because we're always going to be moving towards tyranny. And so what we're hoping we'll accomplish is we can save a generation to give us more breathing room, more time to make more necessary changes. And so that's what this is all about. This will give us a couple generations to even work harder in the future. And I think once we have our convention and we prove to the world that this process works, this will be a fairly, I'll tell you, it will curtail the corruption and the abuse in the future, because they know we better not go too far, because we don't want them to hold another convention. So we got to get it done, man. We got to get it done.
We're going to go to a break. Don't go away. We will be right back with more Fires of Liberty.
Every individual in his private life has a budget to spend. If he considers whether to spend more on one thing, he has to ask himself, where's it going to come from? Where am I going to cut? But our legislators don't have that kind of a budget limit. They can vote to spend more. And they will say, where will it come from? Oh, somewhere. The taxpayer will pay for it. And I think myself that there is fundamentally only one way in which you can remedy it. And that is by a political change in the form of constitutional provisions which will set a limit to government spending. What we need is to give our legislators a budget to say this much and no more. Because now somebody comes to them and says, you've got to vote more money for this good cause or that good cause. And they say, I agree with you, that's a good cause. Where shall I cut? I have a total budget. We can't vote more unless we vote less for something else. What shall we vote less for? Then the special interests can fight with one another instead of the special interests ganging up on you and me. That is the only hope we have for stopping the growth of government, for holding it back. And then we must not kid ourselves into thinking that we're going to remedy it by the easy way of electing the right people to office. That will not work. Once they get into office, they're going to be subject to the same pressures and the same drives as the people we might regard as the wrong people. In fact, I have often said that the right solution is not to elect the right people to office, but to make it politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing. Because unless it's politically profitable for the wrong people to do the right thing, the right people won't do it either. And I should think by this time we have had ample experience to demonstrate the validity of that proposition. We must look at the thing as a whole and go to the fundamental source of our problems. Thank you.
We are Fires of Liberty. I'm Quinn, along with Clark, and what you just listened to was the segment that we mentioned earlier by Milton Friedman. I just love that clip. And so, Clark, we share all the time how we are working with volunteers in our states. In fact, I'm traveling to Pennsylvania tomorrow. Can't wait to see the team there. We've got a lot of great stuff happening in Pennsylvania, and I know you've been working with the team right now with North Carolina. Are you doing any traveling this week?
Yeah, I'm actually off to Kentucky on Saturday of this week. I was in Columbia, South Carolina this past weekend. Before that, I was in Jackson, Mississippi. I'll be traveling to all 6 of my core states in the next few weeks. I've already done a few. And it's the thing that's cool about that, Quinn, is I get to be face to face with the people that are really driving this process. And those are the volunteers inside each state. And I got to tell you, volunteering is not the easiest thing in the world. I mean, you have to put yourself out there just to raise your hand and say, I want to help. That takes courage. And then volunteering itself and becoming involved in an organization like ours. I mean, there's a lot to do. This is a heavy, heavy lift. And I understand that. And, Quinn and I, we're on the paid staff, but I mean, we work 14, 15 hours a day. We work 7 days a week. The national team is all doing the exact same thing. Our state directors work tirelessly, our legislative liaisons, our district captains, our social media folks, our volunteers that are on the ground. They all work tirelessly for this process.
Oh, I remember when I started as a state director here in Maine, and boy, I was starting to feel guilty because every moment I had, from my other job, my full-time job was copier sales, and nights and weekends I was doing COS, and it started to kind of be a little bit too much COS and not enough work. And so, fortunately, an opportunity came where I was able to become a regional director and work full-time for this because I'm addicted to freedom, man.
Well, and that's kind of the point I was trying to make. You have to understand why, or you have to remember, not understand, because I think everybody that's listening to us understands, but you have to remember and constantly remind yourself what it is we are trying to do and why. What it is we're trying to do is simply save the republic. Why? For our kids and our grandkids. I mean, take a look at what's happening out there. We've got a federal government that is completely and totally out of control. $20 trillion in debt. Okay, they lie to us because in 2015, I believe it was, we had $400 billion as a deficit, yet the debt increased $1.6 trillion. That's called funny accounting. Okay, that's fuzzy math, if you will, going back to an old Bush era term. But it's fraud. If Quinn and I tried to do something like that, we'd go to jail. But the federal government perpetuates fraud on us every day. They do not tell us the truth. All right. The federal government is completely and totally lost touch with the American people. We've got $144 trillion in unfunded mandates. And that's a guess. Nobody really knows. We're trying to save the republic from melting down financially. We're trying to save our freedoms from an overreaching government. Article 5 is the only remedy that there is out there that can put the federal government back in its box. Because if we don't do anything or we keep doing the same things that we've been doing, guess what? It will melt down. It is a mathematical fact. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know if we have 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years. I don't know when it's going to happen. None of us do because I don't have a crystal ball. But we do know that it's coming. We do know that the federal government is trying to take, or is taking 100% control over all of our lives. They're stealing our money. They're stealing our liberty. We can fight back. It is our moral obligation and duty as American citizens to put the federal government back in its box. Article 5 is how you do that. The Convention of States model, we are the only organization that is operating the way we are. We're the only organization that supports volunteers at every level, the district level, the state level, the national level. If you can get involved, we need you. And we will support you the best way we can. It's not perfect. By any stretch of the imagination is it perfect. But we are the only organization that can support its volunteers to the level that we do. And so we are trying to teach Americans how to be self-governing again. Most of you already know how to do that. You're doing that in your own lives. And you look at the federal government and go, really? Who are you to tell me how to run my life? And that's the fundamental question. Who decides? Do you decide, or are you going to allow a federal government to decide? If you decide that you want that control, it is your God-given right to have that control, then you need to join us. It's a heavy lift, but we need you. We desperately need you. So this is my plea to get everyone to join the Convention of States Project. And Quinn, this brings us into one of those projects that we're working on right now. We're trying to get to 10 million supporters by the end of this year. That's a big goal, right? I mean, that's a massive goal. But one of the programs that we're laying out there is this, what we're calling 5 for 5. Why don't you explain that real quick?
Yeah, this is a big, hairy, audacious goal, buddy. And so
yeah, baby.
5 for 5. What this is we want all of our supporters to invite 5 of their friends to like our Facebook page, the Convention States Project, the national Facebook page, as well as sign our petition. And what we have come up with is a very simple way of doing it. You know, you're talking about the sacrifice that our founders made, you know, Clark, and when I read history and I see what they went through in this fight for freedom, and we look at us today and we hear people saying, well, I just don't have the time, or I'm too busy. It's like, wow, it really it kind of rubs me the wrong way. But what we're asking does not take a lot of time. There's a great, simple extension that you can add to your Chrome browser that will allow you to invite all of your Facebook friends with the click of one button. I did it last week. I got 5 new friends to like our page in about 30 minutes. I think it's up to about 20 now. So imagine if all of our supporters out there did this, we would be well on our way to reaching 10 million. So please go to our Fires of Liberty Facebook page. I will post this video on how to add this to your browser. And please join the fight for freedom. Invite your friends. Start getting involved. If you're not a district captain, or if you're not a volunteer at some level with COS, join us today. Go to our website, apply for a position. A state director or a grassroots coordinator will be calling you shortly to get you on board and you know, join us, because we've got to get this done. And this is how we do it. This is the only way we get this done.
And we do read the posts that people make on the comments section of our social media pages. We do read those. William in Indiana wants us to remind our friends we are not talking politics when promoting Convention of States. We're talking about restoring our Constitution as founded and for improvements by and for the people. He's exactly right.
It's awesome.
Thank you, William. And you've got Dan in Colorado. Let's get Colorado on board. We're working that very thing. We've got a major event planned in July in Colorado, so we'll have the details of that in future podcasts. Fawn in Michigan, thank you for all you do. You're welcome, but thank you for all you're doing. We couldn't do it without you. Cliff in New York. I listened to Clark and Quinn on their podcast. Well, that's self-promoting, but thank you, Cliff. And
Cliff Wilkins, the social media
he's awesome.
warrior. Keep it up, Cliff. Thank you.
Real quick, we've got about a minute and a half left, Quinn. So tell people where they can find us. Plug the Convention of States store at conventionofstates.com/store, etc.
Well, it looks like you just did plug it. So,
I did that. Check
out the swag we have. In fact, I'm going to order some so I can kind of show it up. And, we got some great shirts, hats, all kinds of great stuff. So it's a great way to support us. We're not making money off of that. It's just a way to get our message out there when you're at events this summer. And we have so many events happening. We got parades. We've got fairs. Please, here's a simple way. Download our petitions. We can get your petitions printed out in hard copy sheets of paper. Get our petition signed, and let's use the events this summer to get a lot of support in your local area by just going and maybe setting up a table for us. So contact your state director. He or she can help you set that up and get everything you need. I want to get out of the bunker here, and I'm actually heading to Pennsylvania tomorrow to be with the state team down there. Looking forward to it. I know you're doing some traveling as well. Where are you going this weekend?
I've got Kentucky going on on Saturday. Then I'm going to be traveling to Colorado. We've got events all over the place. So please, as volunteers, make sure you keep in touch with your state leadership. They'll let you know what's going on, because we're coming. And we're bringing Tom Coburn, Jim DeMint, Mark Meckler. We're bringing them with us. So this is going to be awesome. Until next week, everybody have a great and free week. See you next week.
Take care.